Hi, this is your semester review part 1. So the key concept in part 1 will be talking about solutions to the systems of equations. So in problem number 1, we see that we have x and y or y alone. So we actually have y alone. So we're going to notice that we're going to box up one of them, and it doesn't matter which one. And now we're going to write the one that we did not box down. So I have y equals negative 2x plus 5. So then now I'm going to plug in the one that I highlighted like a cord in a socket to the other one that we just wrote down. So then now I'm ready to replace. So the one that we just highlighted is represented by negative 4x minus 3. And now I'm going to start copying the rest of the problem down. So now I only have one variable is what I have. Now I'm ready to solve it up and do the math. So now it's up to you whether or not you want to do the ones that have x's first or the ones that don't have x's first. For me, I'm going to look at the ones that do have x's first. So since my x's are on opposite sides, I'm going to do the opposite so that I can put my x's together. So the opposite of minus 2x is plus 2x. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides. Now I'm going to go and add straight down. So careful, this is negative 2x. Now I'm going to bring down the negative 3 because this has no x. This cancels, that's why I did it. And now I'm going to bring down the positive 5. Now I'm going to look at the numbers that don't have x's. What two numbers don't have x's? That's right, minus 3 and positive 5. So now I'm going to add 3 to both sides so that now I can have the answer of negative 2x equals 8. And now the last step I do is I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. So now I have x equals negative 4. So now I have my x, but now I need to go back. I'm going to take my answer back to where I highlighted so that I can find the answer to y. So I'm going to go back and now I'm going to rewrite the problem that we just highlighted. And now when I get to the letter x, I now have an answer. The answer is negative 4. So now I'm going to replace the x with negative 4. And now copy the rest of the problem down. So now I'm going to solve it again. So negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16 minus 3. So now I have y equals 13. So my solution, remember, is x comma y. So we got the answer of x, which is negative 4. And we got the answer of positive 13 for my y. So that means this is where the two lines crisscross, or what we call intersect. This is the solution. Problem number 2. Find the solution of the following system. Alright, so this is a little bit more difficult because none of them are x or y alone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write the first one, and I'm going to write the second one, and I'm going to split them up. Now if you notice, the first one is actually a little bit easier because I actually can get y alone. And how do I do that? Well, I would subtract 2x by both sides. And when I do that, I get y equals negative 2x. And look, I can now box it up, I can chalk it up, I can now plug this in like a cord in a socket in my second equation here. So now I'm going to take my pen and I'm going to now copy the problem down. So I'm going to copy the second equation down. And now when I get to the letter y, I can now plug in negative 2x like a cord in a socket. And now copy the rest of the problem down. All right, so now I'm going to solve it up, do the math. So I have 2x, 3 times negative 2, remember, you distribute, is minus 6x equals 8. And now I'm going to solve it by using the skills that I learned from the first 6 weeks. I'm going to combine my like terms because both of these have x's. So 2 minus 6 is negative 4, and they both have x's. All right, solve it up. Do the math in this last part. I'm going to divide both sides by, 4, negative 4. And so now I get x equals negative 2. All right, so now I need to take this back so I can figure out what my answer is for y. So I'm going to take it back. So now I'm going to rewrite the problem, y equals negative 2, but now I know the answer to x, which is negative 2. So now I know y equals positive 4, because negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. So my solution, remember, is my x value, comma, y value. So the answer that I got for x was negative 2, and the answer that I got for y is positive 4. So this is the point of intersection. Problem number 3, we're going to use elimination. Now remember, to use elimination, what we want to do, the rules of the game are that the coefficients have to be the same. One is positive and the other one is negative. That way we can wipe out my y. Notice in this problem, my y wipes out because I have positive y and negative y. So then now I'm ready to just add straight down each column. So 4x plus 5x is 9x. I wiped out my y, and now I'm going to add straight down my answer column. This would give me 36. All right, now I'm going to solve it up, do the math. I'm going to divide both sides by 9, so that now my answer, x equals 4. Now I need to go find the answer to the letter y. So it doesn't matter which one you take it back to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take it back to this first one here. So I'm going to rewrite this problem, 4x plus y equals 14. Now if you notice, I now do know the answer to x. It is the number 4, so I'm going to plug it in. And then now I'm going to copy the rest of the problem down. All right, so now I'm going to solve it up and do the math. 4 times 4 is 16 plus y equals 14. All right, what two numbers don't have y's? That's right, 16 and 14. So I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. So then now I have y equals negative 2. Again, the solution to my answer is x comma y. So that means the answer that we got for x is positive 4, and the answer that we got for y is negative 2. So my solution, the point of intersection, is going to be at 4 comma negative 2. All right, so when the equations are easy, I'm going to graph them. So I'm going to take my first graph, and I'm going to use my first color. Now remember, this is like what we've learned when we graph. Y equals mx plus b. So where do I begin? That's right, I begin at positive 2. This is called my y-intercept. So I'm going to put a dot at positive 2, but let's label my y-axis and x-axis first. So I'm going to go ahead and put a dot at positive 2. Now my slope is how I move. So my slope here is the invisible negative 1. So this is going to be negative 1 over 1. So remember, that means I go down 1 and to the right 1. And here's my another dot. Down 1 and to the right 1. And now I'm ready to take my ID and draw a line. All right, so now I'm ready to take my second color, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now remember, it's going to be y equals mx plus b. So where do I begin? That's right, my y-intercept will begin at -1. So I'm going to put a dot at -1. All right, so how do I move? What's my slope? So my slope is going to be -3 over 1. So that means I'm going to go down 3 lines. So down 3 and over 1. So that's where my next dot is. So now I'm ready to connect these two dots and create my new line. So now that I've drawn my two lines and graphed it, you'll find the point of intersection is the solution. So remember, the solution is where the two lines intersect. So that's the definition of a solution. And in this case, where they intersect is at -3/2, 7/2. For problem number 5 and 6, we're going to find the slope of the line. So remember, the slope of the line is how I move, or it's the direction and the steepness of my line. So remember, we've learned that it is in the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So since they're asking for only the slope, I'm looking for the m. And in this case, my m equals 4 over 5. So that means I would go up 4 to the right 5. All right, so then now let's take a look at problem 6. Number 6, unfortunately, is not as easy. So what I need to do is, the first thing I need to do is to solve for y. So I'm going to use my Algebra 1 skills to do that, to get y by itself. So in order to do that, I want to get rid of the x, since I want y by itself. Now remember, 7 does not have an x, so I'm going to put the -4 to the side. When you bring down the 5y, don't forget it's negative. And in algebra, we like to put the x first, so I'm going to put -4x plus 7. If you put 7 minus 4x, you have the same answer. So feel free to write it that way too. All right, so then the last step, I'm going to divide everything by -5. And when I do that, I get the answer of y equals positive 4/5 x minus 7/5. Okay, so now I'm ready to compare it with my slope equation. Y equals mx plus b. So which one belongs to the m? That's right, so I have 4/5. So my slope is 4/5. So that means I would go up 4 and to the right 5. Problem number 7. Now I'm ready to find the slope of the line that passes through the pair of points. So remember, to find the slope, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my x and y t-chart. So now I have 4, 4 and 6, 0. So we're going to now, slope means a change in the direction that I have. So that means I'm going to change the direction of my table, and I'm going to go ahead and lay it sideways. So now you'll notice that it's y over x. And so when I do that, I get 4 minus 0 now in the numerator and 4 minus 6 in the denominator. So now I'm ready to just do the math. So now I get 4 over -2. And that reduces down to -2, or -2 over 1. For problem number 8, the key word that we're looking for is slope. What is the slope? Remember Mr. Slopeface. Mr. Slopeface is to help you remember the direction of your slope. So remember, his eyebrows represent the negative slope and a positive slope. His nose represents the undefined, and his mouth represents the 0 slope. So the line on problem number 8, which one would it represent? Would it be his eyebrows, his nose, or his mouth? That's right, it would represent his mouth. So that means this has 0 slope. For problem number 9 and 10, we're going to find the slope and the y-intercept. So remember, for the slope and the y-intercept, I need my equation in the y equals mx plus b form. So I need to get y by itself. So I'm going to solve for y first. All right, so then now to do that, I'm going to get rid of the 10. So I'm going to minus 10x to both sides. Remember, 96 doesn't have an x, so I'm just going to move it to the side. So I'm going to bring down 16y equals, now remember in algebra we like to put our x's first. If you put 96 minus 10x, you have the same answer as I do. So now the last step we all have to do though is to divide everything by 16. Okay, so now I'm ready to reduce all of this. So now I get y equals, 2 goes into both of these, and so I get negative 5 over 8 x and then plus 6. All right, so now I'm ready to compare y equals mx plus b. All right, so where would I begin? That's right, so my begin is my y-intercept. So my y-intercept is going to be at 6, and my slope is how I move. So my slope is negative 5 over 8. So that means this I would go down 5 and then to the right 8. So that's what slope means. All right, so problem number 10, I'm going to do the same thing. Well, luckily, this is in the y equals mx plus b form. So where would I begin? Where is my y-intercept? Be careful, this time the 10 is negative. So my y-intercept is at negative 10. And my slope is 7 over 2. So that means I would go up 7 and then to the right 2 because they're both positive. For problem number 11, I want to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept of the line. So that means I want to get x-intercept, which means I only want the x, and I want to find the y-intercept, which means I only want the y value. All right, so what I'm going to do is write the problem twice. So I have negative 2x minus 7y equals 98. And let's find the x-intercept first. So we'll do the left side first. All right, so if it says x-intercept, the only letter I want is x. So that means I don't want the letter y. So I'm going to copy the problem down, leaving the x, but I don't want the letter y, so I'm going to cross it out. Because that's the same thing as saying 7 times 0, because I don't want the letter y. So 0 times anything is 0. So it's gone. So now I have negative 2x equals 98. All right, now I'm ready to solve it like the first 6 weeks. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. So I have x equals negative, careful, it's negative 49. So my y-intercept is at negative 49, comma 0. The reason why I do that is because I want the x-intercept. So that means I want an answer for the x value. All right, so now let's swap. Now I want to find the y-intercept. So to find the y-intercept, I only want the letter y. So that means I don't want the letter x, so I'm going to cross it out. That also represents negative 2 times 0, because I don't want the letter x, so that means it's gone. So now I'm left with negative 7y equals 98. All right, so now I have negative 7y equals 98. Now I'm ready to solve. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 7. And using the help of my calculator, I get 13.7. All right, so my y-intercept is going to be, negative 13.7. So my y-intercept will be at 0, comma, negative 13.7. All right, because remember, I want a y-intercept, so that means I want an answer for the letter y. Problem number 12, I want to find the slope of the line. So that means I'm going to find 2 points, and if I were you, I would use 2 easy points. So this right here, remember, that's called the x-intercept because that's where I cross the x-axis. And I'm going to look at this point right here because these are easy for me. So remember, this is called the y-intercept. Okay, so I'm going to label x-intercept as my A point and my y-intercept as my B point. I'm going to put my pencil at -3, 0, and my goal is to get to the other point, but I can't go diagonally. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down 3 lines, and then now I'm going to turn to the right, and I'm going to go to the right 3. So remember, slope is y over x. So that means I went down 3 and to the right 3. So what does that reduce to? That's right, it reduces down to -1. Problem number 13, what we want you to do is BHS. All right, so let's talk about Shane swims 8 miles per day. So that's important. If D is the number of days he swims, M is the total number of miles he swims, what is the rate of change? So the question that they're asking is, what is the rate of change? This is also another way of asking you, how do you find the slope? All right, so what they've given me is slope is y over x. So what they gave me instead were different letters. Y talks about the number of miles Shane swims, and the x represents the number of days. So what would be his rate or change? That's right, it would be the 8 miles per, which means for every day. That means 1 day. So he swims 8 miles in 1 day. So how do you know? So this is how fast or how far Shane swims. So that represents the rate. Problem number 14. We want to use the slope and the y-intercept to graph the equation. Alright, so if you notice, our equation for this video is y equals mx plus b. Alright, so where would I begin? I would begin at +1. This is our y-intercept. This is where I begin. So I'm going to first label my y-axis and my x-axis, and I'm going to put a dot at +1. Alright, so then now I'm going to look at my slope, which tells me how to move. So my slope is my fraction 3 over 4. So since it's positive, I'm going to go up 3 lines, and I'm going to go over 4 lines, to the right 4. So that's how you find your slope. Up 3 to the right 4. And now I can connect my 2 dots. So this line represents the equation y equals 3/4 x plus 1. Problem number 15, I have a line that passes through these 2 points. Write an equation for a line in point slope form. Alright, so the first step I need is I need to find my slope. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my points in table form, 1, -2, 2, 1. Alright, and just like before, I'm going to change the direction of my table. That's what slope means. So I have -2, -1, and 1 minus 2. Remember, when I change the direction of a line, I'm subtracting. So that's why I'm always going to be subtracting. So then now I have -3 over -1, and that reduces to positive 3. So my slope, my m, equals positive 3. All right, so then now I'm ready to write an equation of a line. It doesn't tell me which point to use, so I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to go ahead and pick the first one. So remember, this is my x, this is my y. So for the point slope form, the equation is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. So all this really means is this is my x value, this is my y value, and then m is my slope. So I'm going to start copying the problem down, y minus, and then now notice here in my y, this is negative 2. So careful here. This is y minus a negative 2, which this becomes a positive 2. And then now I have equals, the slope that I found is positive 3, so 3. And then now I'm going to copy the rest of the problem down, parentheses x minus, and then notice my x is here, which is 1. So this is my point slope form, y plus 2 equals 3 times the quantity of x minus 1. This is my equation in point slope form. For problem number 16, I want to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So that means I need two things. The first thing I need is I need my slope and I need my y-intercept. Okay, since they gave me 2 points here, I'm going to label this point as point A, and this is going to be point B. So I'm going to first put my pencil on point A. My goal is to get to point B, but without going in a diagonal. So let's see how I do this. I go up 1, up 2, up 3, up 4 lines. So I'm going to go up 4, which that is slope, y over x. So I went up 4, and then now I'm going to turn to the right, 1, 2. So I went to the right, 2. So this reduces to 2. Now I'm going to look for the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, which is here at this point. So the point is at 0, negative 1. All right, so for the slope-intercept form, this is in y equals mx plus b form. So I now have everything that I need. Y equals the slope that I have, which is 2. Then I have my x, so it's 2x. Now it's supposed to be plus b, but if you notice, my y-intercept is negative 1, so it's going to be minus 1. So my equation will be y equals 2x minus 1. On problem number 17, write an equation of a line given the slope and the y-intercept. So just like in the prior example, my slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So I'm just going to put these numbers in its proper place. All right, so the equation will be y equals my m, which is the slope, will be 5. So that means up 5 over 1. Then I'm going to copy the x down, and my b is negative, so this will be a minus 9. So my equation of the line is y equals 5x minus 9. For problems 18 and 19, we're going to find the equation of a line through this point. So let me go ahead and label, this is my x, this is my y, and it's going to be parallel to this equation. So that means the first thing I need to find is my slope. So the slope is in y equals mx plus b. So my slope will be 2 over 3. So the slope is 2 over 3. Now remember, if I want a parallel slope, that means it's going to be the same. So parallel means the same slope. So that's going to remain as 2 over 3. All right, so for the equation that I need is I'm going to need my point slope. Y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. All right, so now I have my x and I have my y. So I'm just going to start copying the problem down. Y minus, and my y1 is 5. So it'll be a 5 first. Then I'm going to continue copying my problem down. My slope is the same, so it's going to be 2/3. Then I'm going to copy the problem down, parentheses x minus, and now I'm going to look for the x. Now, since the x is -2, remember we don't write it like this in high school. We make this into a +2. So my equation of a line is 5 minus y minus 5 equals 2/3 times the quantity of x plus 2. For number 19, I'm going to write an equation through the point 6, 6. So here's my x, here's my y. But the key word now is perpendicular to y equals -4/3 x plus 2. All right, so just like in number 18, I need a slope. So my slope is -4 over 3. Now this time in this equation, I need the key word perpendicular. Do you remember what we do if it's going to be perpendicular? That's right, it's going to be the opposite reciprocal. So that means I want the opposite sign and I want to flip the fraction. So that means it's going to be now a positive, and I'm going to flip the fraction, so it's 3 over 4. All right, just like in number 18, my equation is y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. All right, so now I'm ready to start. Y minus, and my y value is 6. And then I'm going to copy the rest of the problem down, equals. Now my slope is what we just flipped. So it's going to be positive 3 over 4. And now I'm going to copy the rest of the problem down, x minus, and now I want the x value, which is positive 6. All right, so then my final equation is y minus 6 equals 3/4 times the quantity of x minus 6.